Hey guys, Letter Magic here, and we finally got the end of the spoilers, which means they spoiled 101 cards a day. They're almost all commons, and just for time's sake, and because nobody cares about a lot of these, draft filler cards, I'm going to be skipping a lot of the just vanilla blah filler who cares kind of stuff that's been printed 100 times before. So this is not a full video of spoilers, it's just the important ones that anybody cares about. So from yesterday, actually, we have Sis Ring, which is a 4-cost artifact that taps for 2. So it's kind of like Soul Ring, except actually fair. Next up, Burnished Heart, aka the famous lawn ornament. I believe that's what I called it last time it came out. It's a 2/2 for 3, and then you pay 3. So it costs 6 total, which is quite high, but you sack it and then go get 2 lands, basic lands, and then drop them into play. So 2 lands directly dropped into play, and you can split it 3 mana between 2 turns, which, I mean, you're basically going to lose your turn then. And this isn't green, so not terrible, but if you were to compare this to, like, Cultivate or, I don't know, I think there's, like, a 4-cost green that'll drop 2 into play. But I could see other colors playing this just to get some lands in, I guess. Next up, Corridor Ghost Chieftain. It's a 8-cost legendary creature centaur spirit. It's a 3/4, and it costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your graveyard. So just creature and just your graveyard, not your opponent's. And then during each of your turns, you may cast a creature spell from your graveyard. So once again, ETB, get it killed, sacrifice it, get a benefit out of it, and the next turn bring it back again in an infinite loop. Clearly, whoever designed this card does not understand how Magic works, because the proper way to do this is the next time it dies, exile it. Everybody knows this. But nope, infinite loop. Next up, Workshop Assistant. It's a 3-cost 1/2, and when it dies, return another artifact card from your graveyard to your hand, not the battlefield. Hey, they did learn something. Next up, Sunset Pyramid. It's a 2-cost, and it enters with 3 bricks on it. You might remember this. If you pay 2 and tap it, you remove a brick counter and draw a card. So it's just, you got to pay for it 3 times, but it's 3 extra cards in your hand, and then whenever you want, you can just pay 2, tap it, and scry, no matter how many bricks it has on it. So kind of slow, but kind of nice. I mean, especially if you're already playing something that cares about artifacts and the number you have in play or in your graveyard or whatever. Next up, this one's huge, Shimmer Mirror. So it's a 2/2 for 3 with flash, and you may cast artifact spells as though they had flash. Huge card. This lets you just play, blue colorless hybrid artificers and just hold a counterspell, and then, I didn't need the counterspell, boom, flash in an actual artifact that you wanted to play on your turn during your opponent's end step. Next up, Pirate's Cutlass. It's 3-drop, but then you can equip it for 2, and you can also equip it when it enters battlefield to a pirate for free, and then it gets +2/+1, so, this is your basic pirate sword. The pirates are kind of weak, so I would throw in pirate-related equipment, definitely to get them big enough to actually hit, because the whole point with pirates is whenever they do damage to a player, do this. Next up, Pen and Blade, used by some guy from Dark Souls, and equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control. So in a go-wide token dump flood deck, oh yeah. It is 4 to equip though, but it should be. Next up, we got a pretty wild card here. It's a 6-drop, which, okay, but still, you pay 3 and tap it, draw 3 cards, and this ability costs 1 more to activate for each card in your hand. So, I mean, 6 is pretty steep to get this out. And then, I mean, if your hand's empty, cool, draw 3 for 3, which is insane. I mean, the normal ratio on the average blah card based on divination and a couple other staples is 1.5 mana per card. So if you have 3 cards in hand, you got to pay 6 to get 3, and that's already, not amazing. But it keeps somebody with a full hand from going even more nuts with it, so this is actually, an astonishingly fair card. But then there's the dicks just running Teferi's tutelage. Next up, Hero's Blade. Huge card for Commander here. It's a 2-drop, which is really nice. Equipped creature gets +3/+2, which is huge. And then whenever a legendary creature enters your battlefield, like, for example, your Commander, then you may attach Hero's Blade to it for free. Otherwise, if you're getting torn apart and you got 1 creature left, just pay the 4 to equip it. I mean, that's not that high. You probably have it. And, oh, look, now you got a big creature. Maybe they stop swinging because of it. So just amazing card. You should always consider this if you've got room in your commander deck. Next up, Haunted Cloak. Pretty vanilla card here, nothing too special, but I wanted to point it out because I will never be able to not see this as 2 glowing prairie dogs. And neither will you now. So equipped creature has Vigilance, Trample, and Haste, and then equip 1. So, I mean, haste for equip 1 is pretty good. I just don't like equipment that doesn't make your creature any bigger, but this is Vigilance and Trample and Haste, and you can just sit there and toss it around for 1. And basically anything that enters the battlefield, you can just pay 1 and now it has haste. I mean, that's pretty good. Next up, Dreamstone Hedron. Oh yes, it's a 6-drop and it taps for 3, so still more fair than Soul Ring. And if you pay 3 and tap it, sack it, and draw 3 cards. Pretty darn powerful, but definitely a late game card. I mean, I always told people in standard, if your ramp cards, like your mana ramp cards, cost 3 or more, don't run them. That's too late. You're already waiting for like your cheap mana ramp cards, your elvish mystics, your mana dorks, your whatever, double drop land cards to come out early, and then your big bomb cards to come out later. Well, if you got a bunch of bomb cards in your opening hand, you're already mulliganing. So you're already waiting for that. Now you're adding another layer. You've got your 1 and 2 cost ones that'll ramp you a little bit. Then you got all your 3 cost ones that'll ramp you a lot, but you can't play them on turn 1 and 2. So now you have to pull 3 sets of cards in a fairly specific linear order with very little room for error. So now you've got one that costs 6. Like, what even is this? I mean, I guess late game it would be kind of neat to play with and do stuff with, I guess. But mana ramp that you don't want in your opening hand is pretty bad. Next up, Foundry Inspector, because, of course, it's a 3-drop and artifact spells cost 1 less. Pretty obnoxious card in Artifact Synergy or Affinity or whatever they call it. Well, hell, both, I guess. Next up, Codex Shredder. Oh, good. It's a 1-drop artifact. Tap this artifact immediately because it doesn't have summoning sickness, and target player mills a card. So it could be you, could be your opponent. It's early but slow at milling somebody out, and early but slow at packing your graveyard to resurrect stuff, so very useful. And then if you pay 5 and tap it and sack it, you can return a card from your graveyard to your hand. Very nice, very interesting. Next up, we got a Brass Herald, which costs quite a bit at 6, but when it enters battlefield, choose a creature type, and then you look at the top 4 cards of your library, put all creature cards of that type into your hand, and then creatures of the chosen type get +1/+1. And then he's a 2/2 and isn't a member of whatever that is unless you're playing Golem Tribal by sheer coincidence. So anybody could blow him away. That's a pretty good one and done effect. So I don't know. It's like if you're running Tribal and you think you can get to 6 a lot easier than the average person, yeah, I'd say go for it. Otherwise, it's just too expensive. Next up, Amorphous Axe. It's a 2 cost and equip 3. Equipped creature gets +3 attack, +0 toughness, and is every creature type, which gets really complicated. Next up, we got Hamza, Guardian of Erishin. It's a 6 cost 5/5, but it costs 1 less to cast for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. And then creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. So an absolute bomb card in Proliferate, totally. Next up, classic card Wild Size, aka Chocify. It's a 3 cost instant, and target creature gets +2/+2 and trample, and then you draw a card. So we've seen bigger boosts, but not losing a card from the card advantage just to boost something one time in a one and done effect and then you lose the card to the graveyard, there's value in that, especially in Commander. Next up, absolutely insane card, Strength of the Pack. It's a 6 cost. Put 2 1/1 counters on every single creature you control. Almost regardless of the type of deck you're running, that's a powerful spell, but the wider you go, the bigger. So, yeah, pretty good. Next up, I am skipping a lot of these for just boringness, but Scaled Behemoth, I mean, it's just classic. It's a 6 cost 6/7 with hexproof. Don't underestimate that. I mean, when they can't target it with anything, boy, they're out options, and it's already huge. So you start boosting it, equipment, auras. Ooh, watch out. Next up, we got a very unique green spell. It's Monstrous Onslaught. It costs 5 and it's sorcery speed, but it deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control as you cast this spell. Not when it resolves, when you cast it. So somebody's like, I don't know, hidden response, instant speed board wipe. Well, X is still 15. You can just have a big guy sitting there, deal, 8, 9, 10, 15, 30, 100, who knows, damage to whatever you want, wipe out, 1, 2, 3 players, their entire battlefield, and then you've still got a giant creature, or maybe more than one, sitting there. So then you swing. I mean, you could cast this and just absolutely knock out 1 or 2 or 3 people. I mean, this is just absurdly powerful. Next up, classic card. It's an Ordeal. Oh yeah, everybody loved these. It's a 2 cost enchantment aura, enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. Then if 3 or more 1/1 counters are on it, sacrifice it. When you do, you go look in your library for 2 basic lands and put them into play tapped. All of this for 2 mana. So you might be thinking, well, I have to attack and get away with it for 3 turns when my opponent knows this is going to go off? Or you strap it to a creature that already has 2 or more counters, swing once, it goes off immediately in the middle of combat, and then on top of it, in the middle of combat, or I should say, in the middle of your declare attacker step, you get to then trigger landfall twice potentially. So there's a very right way to run this card. Next up, Shankyboa Enabler. It's Lifecraft's Gift. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature, then put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. Pretty insane card for 4 already, but then they went and slapped instant on it, which is just devastating. Next up, pretty bomb-ass card here, Ivy Lane Denizen. They're finally revealing the fact that this set was designed to run Elf Tribal as the green color that gets +1/+1 counters out of control. In fact, there's a couple elf cards that I missed that drop counters. Or not missed, I skipped them on purpose because they're boring. But Ivy Lane Denizen, here we go. They put an NPC shopkeeper into the game finally. You don't see that a lot. So whenever another green creature enters battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Very, very, very good card. A lot of people overlook this. This was very underappreciated when it was in standard. Next up, interesting new card here. We got Fin-Clade Fugitives. It is a 6-drop, but it's a 7/4, and it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, so forget about chump blocking. So once you eliminate chump blocking, you're either going to run into a mid-range creature and they're going to lose it, or you're going to force them to block with like a 7/7 and they're going to lose it. And then on top of it, it has Encore 5, so it's coming back again with its 7/4. I mean, you mix this with like an ambush boost where you make it even bigger, you make it indestructible. Oh man, is this thing annoying. Next up, another annoying Cascade spell. It's Volcanic Torrent. You pay 5 and then Cascade, great, and then it deals X damage to each creature and planeswalker your opponent's control, where X is the number of spells you've cast this turn. So just more Izzet, Storm, spell spamming garbage. Not to mention a 2-sweeper no matter what. So very annoying. And it only hits opponents, so it's not even a true sweeper. It's an asymmetric board wipe, basically, so very annoying. Next up, fun little troll card here. It's Undying Rage. It's a 3-cost aura. You enchant creature. It gets +2/+2 and can't block. Cool. I'm surprised I didn't make it swing every turn, because that's usually how these work. But when Undying Rage is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, so in other words, when the creature it's attached to dies, return Undying Rage to its owner's hand. So cast it again, and again, and again, and again. So, I mean, cool, why don't you just run equipment? But it's still a neat card. Maybe you get an enchantment ETB, Constellation, who knows. Next up, after skipping, I think, about 10 boring vanilla, just seen it a million times red cards, we've got Frenzied Saddle Brute. It's a 5-cost 5/4 with haste, and this is interesting. I like this. All creatures can attack your opponents and planeswalkers your opponents control as though those creatures had haste, but they don't truly get haste. So the turn they come in, they can either sit there and do nothing or attack someone other than you. I like it, but I feel like you might have to keep reminding everybody of this every single time that every other player drops in a creature, and that's going to get annoying. But it's still a good card. Next up, interesting new card here, Fathom Fleet Swordjack. It's a 4-cost 4/3 Orc Pirate. Whenever it attacks, it deals damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking, equal to the number of artifacts you control, which could be very significant. And then it has Encore 6, so it can do it again. So that damage happens the second that it is declared an attacker. So it can kill you before it even touches you, no matter how many times you block it. And then no matter what you do, it's coming back again with Encore. This is extremely annoying if you were to line up, 10, 15 treasure tokens or something. Jeez. Next up, classic commander tactic here. Explosion of Riches. It's a 6-cost sorcery. And you draw a card, then each other player may draw a card. When a card is drawn this way, Explosion of Riches deals 5 damage to target opponent chosen at random from among your opponents. So in 2-player, I'm going to take a wild guess that they're not going to do this. In 4-player, it's worth the risk. There's only a 33% chance they're getting hit. In 8-player Commander, screw it, I'm drawing a card. Sincerely, everybody. So you're going to do 35 damage to your opponents, you just don't know who, and it can't hit you, and they're all going to say yes. So, just hilarious trolley card. The only problem is when you get a 7-sided die, you basically got to roll an 8-sider and then just say, well, if it lands on 1, we re-roll. Next up, Crimson Fleet Commodore. Oh boy, a 5/2 for 4 and you become the Monarch, and it has trample. So you're going to swing with it. So this really helps you become the Monarch and then not get hit by being a 5/2 with trample. Now you become the Monarch, and then it's an enchantment, and if it says every player has to pay 1 per attacking creature, 1 mana, to attack you, now we've got a card. Now we've got the first Monarch card that might actually be playable without just making every single person attack you instantly. Next up, Champion of the Flame. Never did like this card. It's a 2-cost 1/1 with trample, and it gets +2/+2 for each aura or equipment attached to it. So this is part of an all-in strategy where the person just tries to win on turn 3 or 4. It was super obnoxious, and 1 kill spell, and they're just done. They're out for the game, basically. With equipment, it's not so dire. It's just when it was in standard, there wasn't good cheap equipment, so it was just all auras, and they would just lose like their entire hand and just forfeit if you blew this up. If you try this crap trying to stack up 5 auras on one creature in Commander, especially multiplayer Commander, you are going to lose that creature. 100% you are going to lose that creature. So why they printed this in a Commander set, I have no idea. It doesn't work. I think they're just like, oh, this kind of works with equipment. Okay, and then they're just assuming you'd strap one sword to him or whatever, which, yeah, that's a valid strategy. Next up, Burning Anger. Now this is a spicy, spicy monkey. It's a 5-cost aura enchant creature, and then you can just tap it, and it deals damage equal to its power to any target. I feel like if they wanted to make this a particularly fair card, they would have said any target other than players. But yeah, you don't even need to swing. You just tap it, and the damage can't reasonably be blocked. Next up, Revnint, and I'm pointing out this card just because there's a better card called Night Howler. This is basically White of Precinct 6, but flying. So it's better than that, but worse than Night Howler. But people seem to like this card for some reason. I mean, technically Night Howler doesn't have flying, but it also has Bestow, so just put it on a creature that has flying. But anyway, still a solid card because its power and toughness are equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard, whereas Night Howler says all graveyards. You want to talk about a multiplayer card. If you're running black and you're not running Night Howler, there is something wrong with you and you need to reconsider that. I mean, it's literally like a 20/20 that your opponents have to kill twice if you bestow it. 3 times if you put Supernatural Stamina on it, which is another card. Until end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains when this creature dies. Return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. So it's really solid for suicide ambushes. Otherwise, you usually get one benefit or the other. Next up, insanely powerful card, if you can get it to work. It's Thirst for Knowledge. It's a 3-cost instant, and you draw 3 cards, so that's insane. Then discard 2 cards, unless you discard an artifact. So you're getting rid of at least 1, maybe 2 cards. So it's like, okay, but you still get to look at 3 for 3 mana. I mean, that's huge if you're looking for something particular. Next up, we've got Skilled Animator. It's a 1/3 for 3, and when it enters the battlefield, target artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 5/5 for as long as Skilled Animator remains on the battlefield. And if you're looking for a cheaper, faster, better version of this, it's called End Soul Artifact. It's an aura, so it's harder to kill than a 1/3 human artificer. Next up, very underrated card here. It's Spontaneous Mutation. It costs 1 single blue mana. It has Flash. You enchant creature, and then it gets -X attack, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard, which late game is a lot. In early game, well, how big is the creature you're pinning down? Or not really pinning down, but making useless. Now, they could have a -15 for toughness creature and just block with it forever. So it doesn't completely get rid of the problem, but I mean, for 1 mana, this is devastating. In Commander, you tend to have availability of more mana, though, so I'd rather just pin it down with, like, I don't know, I'd say Singing Bell Strike, but you can get out of that. Next up, oh my gosh, it's a Monarch card worth playing that actually makes sense. That only took 11 days, so it's Azure Fleet Admiral, a 4-cost 3/3, and when it enters battlefield, you become the Monarch, and then Azure Fleet Admiral can't be blocked by creatures the Monarch controls. So 0.01 seconds later, when somebody hits you and you're no longer the Monarch, you can now hit them back. Guaranteed, unless they blow this up or something, you can steal it right back. But let's play this out. 6 players, okay, you play this. Boom, you're the Monarch. Now everybody's like, I want to be the Monarch. I like outdrawing my opponents 2-1. So the entire rest of the turn cycle around the table, you've got 5 people all swinging every single creature they own at you, so that'll go well. But whoever becomes a Monarch, you can just swing at them and take it right back. So now you've got 5 people the next turn all swinging at you, trying to hit you at least once to become the Monarch until one person successfully does. And you've got 5 people all trying to waste their kill spells on this creature. So does it really work? Maybe if you made him hexproof. Otherwise, they should have called this Lightning Rod Pirate. Next up, bomb-ass card from a couple years ago, we got Aqueous Form. It's a 1-cost aura enchant creature, and it simply can't be blocked. And then whenever you attack with it, you scry 1. Pretty insane value for 1 blue mana. Not much of investment if they blow it away, too. Next up, oh, is this a commander card? Slaughter the Strong. I would troll people with this even in 1-on-1 when it was in standard. So it's a 3-cost sorcery, and each player chooses any number of creatures they control with total power 4 or less, then sacrifices all other creatures they control. So basically you choose creatures until you add up their power and it hits 4, and then you're done choosing, all the rest die. Now, it hits you too, and it isn't a full board wipe, but under the right circumstances, you can keep something really good and nobody else does. Next up, a trolley card that actually went a little too far. This is a little much power-wise, in my opinion. It's Orzov Advocist. It's a 3-cost 1/4 human advisor, and at the beginning of your upkeep, each player may put 2 1/1 counters on a creature they control. If that player does, then they can't attack you or a planeswalker you control until your next turn. Which is a weird way to phrase it, because they can't attack you on your next turn, so it should be after your next turn, but whatever. So is that a Thrall customer or a Thrall paralegal? Anyway, who the hell is going to turn down 2 1/1 counters? So basically nobody is swinging at you for the rest of the game. I think actually I might put this in my don't attack me deck, because once they blow this up and eventually do attack me, or just get a 15-15 and now I'm the only player left or whatever, which is where it backfires, they're going to lose that creature the second it attacks me. Next up, one of my all-time favorite cards, it's Fencing Ace. It is the base for all boosting and auras and equipment. Oh, I love it. It's just straight up a 1/1 for 2 with double strike. Just as a great example of what I'm skipping here, Iona's Judgment, a 5-cost sorcery speed spell that says exile target creature or enchantment. Oh, gee, guys, that might go in this or that type of commander deck. Just kidding. I could name about 30 cards in white that are better than this. It's just there for draft purposes. Next up, there's one big thing that Magic the Gathering and sitting at the bar on game day have in common, and it's my love of free wings. So I mean, enchant creature, your creature now is flying, and then you draw a card. So real simple, yeah, it's 2 mana, but still, it's free wings. Next up, pretty tasty little aura here. It's 2 costs, so you don't invest much. I always like that. I don't like expensive auras, because it's just asking for somebody to blow up your creature. But flash, which is nice, enchant creature, and then when it enters battlefield, choose a color. Enchant a creature has protection from the chosen color, permanently, even though this kind of acts like an instant, because it's instant speed. And then this effect doesn't remove auras or equipment that you control that are already attached to the creature, because normally that's what protection from colors would do. So, I mean, this is nuts. I mean, if somebody's playing mono, which you don't see that often, but, you know, if they're running dual color and every creature is at least partially green, well, you could just swing away now or block forever. I mean, either one. Pretty darn good for 2, and you could surprise somebody when they think they're going to kill it, and nope. I mean, they could just be targeting it with a red damage spell, and oh no, pro-red, instant speed. And then it's pro-red forever, so yeah, really good card. Astonishingly, this spell does not say enchant creature you control. Almost every protection from colors spell is phrased that way, so you could, in theory, throw this onto an enemy's creature and save it, and then now you get some, I don't know, goodwill later in the game, I guess. You're playing with fire, but, you know, it's possible. You can do it. Next up, kind of weak but kind of interesting commander. It does have partner, though. It's Alharu, Solemn Ritualist. It's a 5-cost 3/3 legendary creature, human monk. And when it enters battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 other target creatures. Then whenever a non-token creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it dies, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So, I mean, there's probably better ways than to waste a commander slot on, oh, look, it died, now I get a spirit out of it. But, you know, whatever. Always having access to this is kind of neat. I still think it's a little overpriced for what it does. Next up, Triumphant Reckoning. Oh, yes, the white 9-cost triple color spell. I think this is probably the last one. Well, considering it's the last day of spoilers, yes, this is probably the last one of these. So it's sorcery speed, it's a mythic, and return all artifact, enchantment, and planeswalker cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Let me just point out that Rise of the Dark Realms does the same thing, but without planeswalkers for 9 mana in black, but it's from all graveyards. So if you're able to play black spells, I mean, just saying, you know, you might as well, I'd probably run both of them, but just, you know, that's a better card, basically. And that is it. We have reached the end. We had a lot of boring artifact, elf, and pirate filler that I got rid of. It's just there for draft, and you'd never, in your wildest dreams, put it in your commander deck. So you aren't missing much, but otherwise on Daily MTG or MythicSpoiler.com, there is a full list of all the spoilers, of course. Actually, Wizards might not have posted it till tomorrow, but it depends who they gave these spoilers to. So overall, some pretty tasty cards today. A lot of really pushed power limit stuff. A lot of them are new cards. I'm not surprised. They want to make new cards and basically force every commander player to rush out and buy, you know, 5 to 10 of them to per deck to upgrade their deck. That's what they want, and that's what they made. And the set is half and half in case you didn't hear that or notice. It's 50% reprints, 50% new cards. And I do like that a lot of the new cards are partner cards, so in other words, commanders. So in other words, you'd be, in all likelihood, building a brand new deck, because instead of just, hey, you know that deck that you're running? here's 3 strictly better cards for it. And then you're like, oh, now I gotta go out and buy these cards. Great. Well, now you only bought 3 cards. What if you're like, ooh, I like that partner thing and I've got the perfect deck idea. So then you put together a brand new 98 plus 2? Is that how it works? Or is it 99 plus 2? I actually legit don't know that. Whatever, 100 or 101 card deck, and you had to buy all those cards. I mean, you're probably not buying them directly from Wizards. It's probably, 80, 90% from not the set. But, hey, you're helping out the economy and, buying stuff, moving stuff along, keeping stores in business. But I just can't stand that Gavin came out and said, we're not printing cards that are just strict upgrades that people will see it and immediately feel like that is mandatory to put in my deck. And then that's like a ton of the cards they printed would be described that way. So just because you say it doesn't make it not true. In fact, Magic players aren't stupid. We're looking at the cards, we're looking at our decks, and we're like, okay. So yeah, we saw right through that one, and he got absolutely blown up on social media after he said that. So what else do you expect? So anyway, thanks for watching. These spoiler videos take forever to edit, so not much streaming going on. I might actually stream later today, though, but I'm going to try and stream a lot more, and I might give the full story on why that is later. But hey, if you enjoyed the video, leave a big ol' like on it. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications because I'm going to be streaming 10 times more than I used to. And I will see you guys next video.